Hello and welcome back to the Contra Account podcast, where we give you a bookkeeper's perspective on the world and some of its happenings.
And we also try to keep you up to date with changes and events in the bookkeeping world.
And let's face it, we've begun to develop into a bit of a true crime podcast as well.
Yeah, we have. And we're going to continue that in this episode 5. We're going to look at a recently reported piece of white-collar crime committed by a finance officer at a sporting club not too far away from where we both live in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales.
That's right. And by we, you mean you are referring to Darren McMahon, who is you.
Me.
From Dardee, and Dave Gertler from The Bookkeeping Habit. So thank you for tuning in. Darren, since we last spoke a couple of weeks ago, how have you been? And what sort of stuff has been coming up for you, bookkeeping-wise and in your bookkeeping world?
I am very good, Dave. Thank you. Look, it's been a busy 2 weeks. My first proper 2 weeks, back working. I'm already feeling a little bit tired. I don't know why, but anyway, some days I'm not particularly motivated, like we all get sometimes. But
yeah, it happens, doesn't it?
It does happen from time to time. You just got to push through it. We all have those days, and yeah, we just move on to the next. How have you been?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm generally pretty good. I've been, I guess the work that I've been doing bookkeeping-wise has continued to step up in terms of time and number of hours that I'm doing, and I've been enjoying just taking on a bit more responsibility around payroll in particular for different clients and around end-of-month processes.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I'm still kind of trucking along with a small number of clients, but I'm finding it quite satisfying, the work that I'm doing with them now.
Awesome. That's really good. Good. Well, I've I haven't done anything particularly interesting over the last fortnight, but what I have found is a few different things that I want to bring up that have happened in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Just the other day, Xero made an update on CBA bank feeds. So for anyone who's not aware, what's been happening in Xero, and I do not know whether this happens in QuickBooks Online or whether it happens in MYOB with any of their bank feeds, but in Xero, what's been happening is a lot of the feeds have been coming in with only MIS. So M for Mary, I for Igloo, S for Sam. That has been the only information that has come through besides the date and the amount.
So is that coming in on the bank feed?
Yeah, on the bank feed
part.
So every transaction looks the same.
Every transaction looks like it's described as MIS?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
So, but do you know who the payer is? Does it tell you?
No, it doesn't give you any other information. You don't know who it's from, what it's about.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's been lots of people complaining and, recommendations to try to do different things. And it only happened, originally it was said that it was only happening on the app, and then other bits and pieces. And look, it was just a major debacle. But so Xero came out the end of last week, and they made a statement, and effectively what it is that CBA have admitted that it's a problem with their new system.
Right.
The information that their new system sends, like the way it sends out the data on the bank feed, is different to what their old system used to do.
Right.
Their old system used to send all the correct information. Their new system only sends the MIS. Now, all of their new system is based around the new payments platform.
Right.
Now, do you know what the new payments platform is?
I did at one point. I know that it gets abbreviated to NPP.
Yeah, so that's right. It does. It does get abbreviated to MPP. So anytime you see MPP around a financial transaction,
is it something? Just give me another bite at the cherry. Is it something to do with OSCO payments?
yeah. So OSCO is basically that's built on the new payments platform.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it's kind of the banking industry's new superhighway, or their new
that's right.
innovation to help tech
speed
companies
up payments and provide more information. That's
right.
Effectively what my take on all of that is. Now, CBA has said, okay, we've realised we've got an issue with the bank feed. We need to change some stuff. Now, what they've done is, in a lot of cases now with Xero, they're saying that they're going to switch them back to their old bank feed system and try to get the information flowing through properly. Now, my question here is, what the hell is going on at CBA if they couldn't see that was going to be an issue? Like, who tests this stuff? Who looks at it and goes, yeah, this is all cool, we've got everything working. When you've got a major thing like bank feeds, which happen, everyone is moving to bank feeds. Like any accounting software these days, the first thing that you try to set up is a bank feed.
Yeah.
And for them to go, okay, well, our new system, we've got an issue there where it's not working correctly. Well, how does that happen? I don't understand how an organisation the size of CBA can just have this as a bit of an oversight. That's what it seems like.
And do you think that they're I mean it's ridiculous, but did they seem to recognise the gravity of it in their statements?
Well, look, from what I can tell, I mean, look, this was just information provided by Xero the other day on their Xero Partners page, their Facebook group. Now, I don't know whether that information has been provided anywhere else, but because it's very, very fresh. So that's only what they have told Xero. I don't know exactly what they're doing about it internally, how they're going to fix it, how long that's going to take. The thing is that there's a lot of accountants and bookkeepers who are really annoyed about it because it just makes our job so much harder. It really does make it so much harder. You effectively need to kill the bank feed and download the transactions that you want to import. Now that takes out, that makes the whole process a lot more difficult because the process that we're so used to now is logging in each day or every couple of days, whenever you choose to do it, and just having your information there and being able to reconcile it, rather than have to log into your internet banking software, download a file, upload the file. In a lot of cases, those files, depending on what format of the file you use, some of those files need to be adjusted in Excel before you import them. It's not a massive deal, but if you've got 100 clients, that's 100 times, say, 5 minutes of work. Well, that's a lot of time.
That's if you have access to their bank accounts.
If you have access to their bank
and can
account,
download
exactly.
their statements, because a lot of the
Exactly.
time you're just getting the bank feed via Xero,
Correct.
and that's as close as you're going to get to accessing their bank account.
Correct.
So it's a lot more than 5 minutes if you have to call them up and explain the process.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too.
A statement.
Yeah.
But then once you do have the statement exported, then it's the same as having the bank feed, but there's a manual element to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's what was the kind of scope of this again? Like, how long is this occurring for before
this has been happening for a little while now. Like, when I say a while, it's probably a month, 2 months from what I can see. And it's not every file. It's only some files and it depends on how the transaction's been initiated. But it's it's enough widely spread that it's, an issue that needs to be fixed now rather than later. So
let's hope it is.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Interesting.
So what else has been happening industry-wise? What's another story?
Okay, so STP Phase 2. Now, I think I mentioned in a previous episode that STP Phase 2 was to come in on the 1st of July.
Yep.
And now that date has been pushed back.
Okay.
That date has been pushed back to 1 January 2022. So 1 January next year. So it's been pushed back 6 months. Now, I think that is a very, very prudent decision by the ATO. So many people are still trying to keep on top of JobKeeper and all that sort of thing at this point in time. We've got JobMaker coming in. The software companies, practitioners, everyone is still trying to, deal with what's going on at the moment, right? And trying to think ahead and trying to get systems in place for people that may not be on STP and all that sort of stuff. It's too hard. It's just not going to happen in the next 6 months. Like, literally, it would not happen. There would be so much non-compliance. It would be a waste of time to even try to make everyone compliant by then. So I think there's been so much good work done by the associations and other bodies to lobby the ATO and say, look, you do realise that this is just not going to happen. It's not going to work. And so the ATO have seen the light and moved it back 6 months. So
I think STP, of course, stands for Single Touch Payroll, and essentially it's a way that when processing payroll through the most software programs, it means that you're reporting figures to the ATO, and essentially it's kind of it's there in place in order to prevent as much double handling as possible, so that, for example, when you get to the point where you're doing your tax return, there's a lot of pre-filled information already.
Yeah.
So all of the different government bodies for whom it is a concern as to how much money someone's earning and what they're earning, so that with one single touch you're reporting to all those things. And I think, from what I understand, the phase one of it has been about getting it up and running, for the most part, effectively and useful for the ATO and for everyone who uses it. And part two, from what I understand, is sort of just like adding more layers of information.
And also bringing in...
Yeah.
Sorry, and also bringing in line anyone who's may have been deferred from their original, like if you're a closely held organisation and things like that. They were trying to, from what I can understand, they were trying to pretty much bring everyone online from 1 January 2021. But that's just not going to happen now. So that second phase has been pushed back, which is a good thing. So
maybe vaccine information will be included in it.
no, let's not go into that one. I'm going to move on to the next one because some people would get very, very conspiracy theorist about that one. Okay, so AustPayNet and the Fundraising Institute of Australia have released an article. Now, this article, I was a bit, well, it's not an article, sorry, it's research that they want to undertake. Now, what they're trying to say, they're trying to gather information and lobby about Australia abolishing cheques altogether. And they are saying...
Which is something that has been on the cards for a couple of years, and that the RBA has been sort of teasing everyone a bit and foreshadowing like cheques aren't going to be around.
I mean, look, as bookkeeping practitioners, how often do we really see cheques? There might be the odd client where we see cheques and things, but with most clients, we don't even see cheques anymore. Thank God for that, because
that's something actually I can tell you they still teach it at TAFE. It's still all about cheques and check butts and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, the Fundraising Institute of Australia and AustPayNet, they're trying to gather information to say that the charity space deals with a lot of cheques and that the charity space would basically suffer major consequences if cheques were abolished. I don't agree with that. What have I got? I've got 5 or 6 different not-for-profits, and I can tell you out of the thousands of transactions that they get, cheques are a very, very, very small portion of that. And if cheques were abolished, those people who are still writing cheques they'd still donate some other way. It's the usual thing where if you don't make someone change, sometimes they're never going to change. They can change, but they just don't want to change because they've always done it that way. And until they're required to do something different, they won't change.
I don't know.
I believe it's the same with cheques. For as long as we keep cheques, people are still going to use them. If we got rid of them, they'll just donate a different way.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Will they? You know, will they really? I think some of them will, but then, you know, there will still be those people who just go, well, this is too hard for me because I've been writing cheques all my life. I'm 84 years old. I've got all this money, but now this company, this charity is saying that they can't accept my cheque anymore. I just, you know, I think a lot of people would put it in the too hard basket. You know, I just think it would, and that obviously is where they're coming from, and it's a scale thing. You know, it would be a very small proportion of money that isn't effectively donated, but to the people who would have donated, it's all of the money that they would have donated. So, you know, I can see why they're advocating for a bit, you know, for some continuity of the use of cheques. And, you know, this is our compulsory topic that we have to disagree on. So I'm digging my heels. I say keep the cheques. I am Czech as well, so I've got Czech background.
I know. I've just seen the data. Like I can see it with the charities that I work with. Czechs is such a tiny proportion. I mean, look, they may be more substantial for other organisations. I don't know, but I'm not talking about tiny charities who only get a few donations and whatever. Yeah. I'm talking about charities who get, you know, millions each year.
Yeah.
and the number of checks they get is very, very small. Like I'm talking, they probably get maybe probably 6 or 7 a month at the most.
Well, according to the RBA, it's 2.2% of payments made in Australia in the week that they did this survey in 2019 were check payments. That seems like a lot. Yeah, that actually, obviously it's not a lot, but 0.2 is not a large percentage, but 0.2% of all payments made, that's a lot of payments.
I guess the thing in that is, what was the percentage in dollar terms of the total payments made? Was it only 0.2% that were in check form, but was it like 5% of the total dollar value? In which case, then we're having a bit of a different conversation.
Yeah, or was it 0.2% of the transactions and an even smaller percentage of the dollar value?
Of the dollar value, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? But look, I'm all for progress, and I think keeping checks is just bogging the financial transactional infrastructure down. I just think that the day we get rid of checks will be better. We don't have to worry about them. It's just another form that we don't have to, like another form of payment that we don't need to worry about trying to fit a processing for, and yeah.
Yeah. So it just said the sentence is checks accounted for only 0.2% of the payments made during the week of the survey, a similar rate to that recorded in 2016. That's from the RBA website.
So in 3 years, nothing's really changed because everyone who's going to make the shift has made the shift. And this is probably more information to what I was saying. The people who have shifted already and moved on to, a different process, moved on to internet banking, making EFT, making BPays, they've already made the shift. Anyone else is not going to move. And I think in terms of the what do they call it? The rate in which people take on change, they're considered the laggards who are not really going to change until they're forced to change.
So, all right, well, let's leave that one there.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. Whether there's anything that ends up coming out about that.
Did you want to talk a little bit about some of this, the JobKeeper drama that's been exposed recently, or did you want to move on to something else?
Look, I'll just very quickly talk about. There was a report that there had been JobKeeper payments for prisoners, dead people, and other fraud cases that the ATO were looking at. Now, if you ask me, this was always going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think that anyone with any sort of common sense would go, well, this was sort of inevitable. The time frame that it got implemented and, what they did, I think was incredible by everybody involved. I think that there are always going to be cracks when something gets implemented in such a short space of time. I don't see this as a major issue. They'll expose these people. Look, there may be some that will get away with it, but Look, I know of one case where there was even somebody, people involved around our area, not in our area, but close to our area, who were involved in a fraud case for, I think it was over $100,000 in JobKeeper payments for people and entities that didn't exist and things like that.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's going to attract the JobKeeper scheme. Yeah, was going to attract some bad seeds and some bad behavior because we kind of saw from the start that it wasn't very strictly enforced, and it still really isn't. Like, you can claim JobKeeper, pretty much. You can claim it and sort of tick all the right boxes and everything, and then, you know, whether or not you're breaking the law, you'll still get the payments.
They'll catch up with those people though, because there's already been like letters and things sent to people saying, you have claimed JobKeeper for here, and here. You've said this information. Here's what your BAS says, or here's what some other financial information said. We don't believe you should have claimed it. Prove your position. So, look, I know that sort of action by the ATO has been taken.
Yeah.
As I say, I think it was inevitable, but I think with the time frame they had to work with, and you know what was being thrown at them, and as we saw, the goalposts were changing every few days, and there was new things coming out, and I think that what's happened has been done very, very well by everybody involved, and this sort of action will start to take its course now, and those people will be exposed. Obviously, they're not going to catch everyone, but yeah, I don't see it as a bad thing.
I agree. You know, for the most part, I think that the JobKeeper scheme and which was the biggest one, but the ones before it and the ones that came after it, all kind of contributed to what was, I felt at the time, a feeling of national sort of calm. And like in the face of the beginning of the pandemic, when it was really an unknown quantity, financially, it just looked, you know, the stock market had already crashed overseas and in Australia, and just things were looking like dark days ahead. And then at that time that JobKeeper was announced, I remember thinking, okay, I think we're going to be all right. You know, I think Australia will be okay.
Yeah.
Because of this. And I think it's largely the reason that, you know, that it's affected society. Like, countries that haven't had a solid financial management through this thing are the countries that have been very badly affected socially and societally and politically as well.
Yeah.
So should we move on?
Yeah, so that's it for me for this week.
Okay.
Okay, so Dave, before we move on to our main story, have you got anything that you want to talk about?
I do. Yeah, look, you know, I think that as we descend further deeper into our muckraking session, there was a quick story in South Australia in the last couple of weeks. There was a payroll dispute at a restaurant in Adelaide, I think, which was actually a face-to-face dispute that was caught on camera and shared widely on social media. It was very distressing because it led to a woman getting physically harassed by like her boss or someone who works for the boss.
Okay.
So it was like, apparently she was, I think it was in the conversation was in Mandarin or another foreign language. And apparently she was saying, look, you know, you owe me more money. And this guy kind of just came in and said, you know, like a fight ensued basically. And in the middle of this restaurant, someone caught it on video. It was like basically a brawl. Things started getting thrown. It was very upsetting. So the moral of the story is be good with your payroll and don't underpay employees. That's
Yeah.
the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and and another story. Have you ever come across anything like that in your time?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the haven't had that displeasure. There hasn't been anything bad like that that I've come across or seen or anything like that. There has been the odd dispute between employee and employer over wages and things like. But nothing that has descended to that level. No.
Mm. And another thing that was a story that you actually let me know about was a different kind of abusive behaviour on behalf of a tax agent in Sydney.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, who has now been suspended from the ITP, the TPB.
The TPB.
What's
Yeah.
ITB? Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he's been suspended for so he claimed a whole lot of overclaimed work expenses for 82 of their firm's clients a couple of years ago now, and was suspended but then appealed successfully. But it looks like there are some serious conduct issues involved. Do you want to talk about some of the things that he's done?
Yeah, well, he was actually given a stay, meaning like he was required to not take on any new work, which he did. Basically, the TPB said, "Look, you've had all these breaches. We told you not to do certain things. You've gone against those, and then what he's done then, the worst part, is he's then taken to abusing people at the ATO and like basically threatening them with violence. And the TPB have turned around and said, well, look, there's serious breaches here. You're not a fit and proper person to be a tax agent. We're going to ban you. And I don't think there's any other action that they could do. Like, what else do you do in that case?
Yeah, no, it just sounds like a behavioral issue. Like, it sounds like that this person has generally bigger problems. If they told someone to commit suicide or something like that.
Yeah, like that's right. It was really bad.
Yeah, I think if you're at that stage in your career where you're writing emails like that to someone at the ATO, then you need to have a good hard look at yourself. And he's got a couple of years to do that when he's before he's next allowed to apply for to be registered as a tax agent sometime in 2023, I think.
See, that's the one thing that I don't agree with.
What, you
I think he
he
should be banned for
permanently
life.
suspended? Yeah.
I think he should just be completely banned, never to be an agent again. Because
Yeah.
you cannot conduct yourself like that in a position like we have. That's not the right way to go about being a practitioner. And if you're going to conduct yourself like that, he's already shown that he's been given certain orders. He's breached those orders. I think he's been given a chance. He's shown that he can't do the right thing again. Why is he getting another chance in a couple of years? To me, look, people may not agree with it, but to me, that's it. You've done your time. No more.
Well, he can apply again in a couple of years. It doesn't mean that they will accept his application, but
He shouldn't even be able to apply.
In his defense, what I did notice when I looked into it is it looks like over the space of a couple of years across 60 to 80 clients, I think I kind of estimated that it was around $200,000 that was the shortfall of claims. So, I mean, I'm probably going to get roasted for this, but it's not like this was a huge amount of overclaiming.
Doesn't matter.
Right, but like obviously the thing that he's getting suspended for is the conduct. It's not, and who knows? Maybe his conduct was brought on by what he felt was an overreaction by the ATO.
Again, doesn't matter. You can't say those things. You can't do that. You can't take it out on other people. And look, it's the one thing that I do see, and having my interactions with the ATO, a lot of people get very, very frustrated and very, very annoyed at the ATO, and they end up taking it out on the person on the phone at the ATO or whatever. You got to remember, those people at the ATO are just doing their job. They don't make the rules. They're just there to help us and guide us and try to work with us for the best interest of our clients. Now, a lot of people may not see it that way sometimes, but taking it out on the person on the other end of the phone, that's not going to help your cause.
Mm.
Like the person is doing their job just like we're trying to do our job. Okay, we may not see eye to eye, but there's no point taking it out on that poor person on the other end.
Yeah. No.
So,
I mean, it's how to win friends and influence people is just what you need to live by.
I mean, if you want a good outcome, in dealings with the ATO, but by getting them offside, it's not going to help that cause. Not going to help at all.
Mm.
So I see it a fair bit where people get really annoyed and, vent their frustration at ATO staff on the other end. It's not their fault. Look, sometimes they may not understand what we're saying, or they may not understand the issue properly, and you may need to speak to someone at a higher level. But just try and be patient with them and try to, work with them to get a good outcome rather than taking it out on them. It's not their fault.
So speaking of being offside, should we talk about the woman who was defrauding a sporting club?
Now this is a good one, isn't it? Do you want to lead with this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're the one who uncovered this, so I'm happy for you to if you want, but I've got a bit to say about it.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So the headline is, the headline that we saw was on the no, that's not on the Guardian. I can't remember the headline, but it was something like employee defrauds sport club of $1 million. Yeah. And so I looked into this because it was interesting. For a start, I was like, what kind of one of the articles said something about it being a water skiing club. And I was like, how is there that much money in water skiing that $1.1 million will not be noticed if it goes missing,
But that was over 2 months.
Exactly. Over 2 months, right? So not a lot of time. But I looked into it and it's all out there. It's all in the public. So I can say it, I can name and shame. It's the Mulwawa Water Ski Club. And apparently, from what I can tell, it's sort of like it's like a bigger sort of leagues club or RSL type establishment with, not just the water skiing on offer. It's a water skiing park. It's also big pub. It's got gaming, pokies,
Yeah.
live music, bistro, and from what I can tell from its Instagram account, which is also pretty juicy, is it sort of markets itself as an inland beachside resort for people who live in maybe Canberra. I don't know. This is just I'm in the Southern Highlands. This is even further south. I've never heard of Mulwawa.
No, neither have I.
But it looks like for people who are in the know, it's the place to be. So this is a fascinating story. And basically a woman from Victoria originally was a 58-year-old woman, was employed as a finance officer. And over December and January, only a couple of months ago, she processed over $1.1 million to multiple offshore bank accounts.
Yeah.
So, like, how and what was she thinking? And, you know, what do those transactions look like? And how on earth did she think she was going to get away with this? What was her grand plan? Like,
yeah, look, there's so many questions out of this. Like, as you say, all of those things, and to me, the first thing comes up is, what's the controls there over the finance transactions? Like, how, as you say, how on earth does someone transfer $1.1 million out of the bank accounts of a club? You know, we'll call this a club, like, you know, like your local, you know, RSL or whatever, because this is what effectively this club is like. How does someone transfer multiple transactions to multiple offshore accounts totaling 1.1 million? Okay, she obviously got found out quite quickly because, you know, we're only at the beginning of February. These transactions were over December and January.
Yeah.
But even so, I'm absolutely gobsmacked by this. I just don't understand how she was even able to make these transactions.
Yeah. Look, it's really interesting. And one of the things, what I did was I found that Mulwawa Water Ski Club have a great website, and it includes in the About section, it actually has all of their annual reports back to 2012.
Yeah.
So I actually just clicked on 2020's annual report, which was financial reports up to June 2020, and you can have a look at it. You know, because I was like, how's this happening? You know, how is there's so much money in water skiing? But then it obviously says what the sources of revenue are. But for, you know, for instance, there was the total operating revenue for last year was 13.7 million.
So it's not tiny. I mean, it's not massive.
Yeah, not a
but
small.
It's not tiny.
It's not massive. It's not a small operation. The profit after tax was 1.7 million. Now they received $672,000 in JobKeeper,
which is a fair amount.
And then so JobKeeper plus the cash flow boost plus government grants plus capital grants actually adds up to almost $1.1 million. So I wonder if there's any connection to that, you know, if it's more than just a coincidence that that's the amount that she ended up disappearing from their accounts.
Well, the government grants, they would normally receive those. They'd normally get some type of government grants. And then the capital gains, again, they're sort of one-off transactions, and, you know, they can be accounted for. The JobKeeper and the cash flow boost, like those two things, they might well be entitled to it. And, you know, I'm not going to say they're not because I have no idea, and they might well be justified. But you do raise a good question. Did she think that no one would notice because the JobKeeper and the cash flow boost are things that they would not normally see? Did she think that that was a good way to get that money out and no one had really noticed because it's not part of their normal operations? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. And, it could be. I don't know what her logic could have been, but it might have been just basically like if there is this extra income going into a business more than they would usually have to account for, would their controls be vulnerable to, just say I'm her, if I'm her, I'm saying, would their controls be vulnerable to someone like me who can come in as the financial controller and sort of like spin things around so that they don't really notice that the money that came in that doesn't usually come in is also not there.
Well, that's right. And as you just alluded to, and I said before, like, what are the controls around their financial transactions there? Because what you've just said is perfectly, it's what I think as well. Because that money's coming in and it's different to normal. Who's accounting for that? How are they accounting for that?
Yeah.
Do they need to, is it just her that deals with those transactions individually and solely? In which case, if it comes in and it goes out, do they, is no one going to notice?
Yeah. I guess there's no, it remains a mystery as to what her specific MO was. But I can say that at the end of this report, there's a section where they say donations, and they donate to. I'm assuming that they are donating to these organisations, like their different SESs and Rotary Club and stuff. So,
which is not unusual for clubs like that.
No, I'm sure it's not. But I wonder if that's how she did it. I wonder if she disguised the transactions to offshore accounts as donations.
Maybe we won't know. The last thing that I want to say on that is how did she manage to transfer the money out? Like, was she the only signatory on those accounts? And if she wasn't the only signatory, then somebody else has obviously not done their homework on the transaction before they've approved it. And if she is the only signatory on those accounts, how on earth is that allowed from an audit perspective? Because there needs to be some sort of process where there at least be two signatories on the accounts, you would think. But maybe not. I don't know. So many questions with no answers.
Yeah, I know. Well, someone has the answers. Someone always knows something. See, there we are. We are turning into a true crime podcast. When you find yourself saying someone always knows something, then, you're a true crime podcast.
Yeah.
What could a bookkeeper, I think you might have just answered it, but what could a bookkeeper do to prevent this? Or what bookkeeping practices need to be in place to prevent this kind of thing happening?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. And look, I've worked at a place where someone was stealing money from the company. I'm not going to go into detail. I was the person in charge of the financial system at that point in time. Now, the way that our financials and everything were done and the systems that we had back then are not what they are these days. So there was more scope for people to do certain things, and it didn't get discovered for a number of years. it's always easy in hindsight to look back at something and go, well, this, and this should have happened, or, why didn't we see X, Y, Z, or things. Once you can look back at them after the event and you know what's happened, certain things stand out. But at the time, they don't, you don't put two and two together. Look, in this case, in this day and age, I really do wonder how these types of payments could get made. As I said before, like, if there wasn't two signatories, why isn't there two signatories? And if there's not two signatories, then why are the auditors not saying to them they need to have a better process in place?
Yeah.
If there are two signatories, then somebody else either didn't do the job properly, didn't look at, the paperwork that should accompany the payments, or they turned a blind eye. I mean, really, that's what it sort of comes down to these days, I think.
Yeah. In this report that I'm looking at, just out of interest, because it was audited by an accountant, I just did a quick word search for the word fraud, and I don't know if this is interesting, but in the section that says the responsibility of the directors for the financial report, this responsibility includes designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial report that is free from material misstatement, whether it's due to fraud or error. Actually, that's not really relevant to financial controls. It's more about a disclaimer on the audit.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
But, look, I don't know. I mean, we can pose questions forever, but...
Go down there? Do you want to go down to Malwawa one day? We'll do a Contra...
Do some investigation.
We'll do a Contra Account Contra mission.
Well, if there's anyone listening from the Malwawa Water Ski Club, they've now banned us, and we won't be allowed in the
they
front
don't
door.
know.
They've got our names.
Like
they've got our names at the front door. Yeah. No, look, I don't know.
Okay, so let's
move on.
Quick break and move on. So,
what do you got next for us, Dave? Sorry.
What? No. I was just going to say, just before we kind of wrap up, I just wanted to cover off a few things that are a bit closer to home, like stuff that that we're both doing in terms of actual bookkeeping on the ground, being a bookkeeping foot soldier. That's how I see myself. One of the things that has come up to me for ever since I've really moved into employment of any kind in accounts is process documentation. Every job that I've had has needed me to come in and basically extract the process from the person who knows how to do the process, so that I can then do the process and get better at the process, and then repeat the process easily, and then pass that on to the next person who does the job. So it feels to me that there's an underplayed kind of importance on this kind of thing. Like, in every job I've had so far, when I've kind of come up and said, okay, so how do you do this? The person has kind of gone, oh, you just like, you generate this report and then you click this button and then you're done, kind of thing. And if I actually get in there and extract the actual process of what I needed to do, there's actually like dozens of steps involved.
Yeah, there always is. Yeah.
And I really feel like, is this something that the accounting industry and the bookkeeping industry properly addresses, and if it is being addressed, how can my professional career intersect with that? Because as it currently stands, I'm the only person I know who does proper process documentation, and I only use just Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and I take screenshots, and it's just a really simple thing, but it doesn't seem like there's much of an allowance for it. Do you have process documents? What if you need to pass on to another bookkeeper? Do you have a process in place, that they can follow?
Yeah, look, it's a really good topic, and I will freely admit I'm not perfect in this. I'm not perfect with this. I do have some processes documented, but for me, it's been a bit of a process itself to get all those sorts of things out of my head. I think one of the issues that happens for a lot of practitioners is that they start small, they start by themselves, and they get used to doing things a particular way. They know how to do it, and it's only them. So they really don't document that process. Then somebody else comes on board. They might document a few different processes for the things that the other person needs to do, but they still don't document the things that they are doing themselves. Now, as you add more people, that becomes more and more difficult, because generally you find that you don't have time. As you add on more people, you're spending more and more time, assisting other people, and you're not actually doing the work that you were before. So two things happen. You've got more people doing what you were originally doing, but you've also got less time to document those processes, because you're trying to train other people in how to do that, but you've also moved on to other tasks because the business has grown.
Yeah.
So then you come to the point where you're at, where somebody else comes in and goes, okay, well, you've said I need to do this. What is the process? Nothing documented.
It's documented, and it's also gotten to a point where the person who does it also doesn't know how to explain what they're doing, because it's all just muscle memory for them, and they don't even know what they're doing as they're doing. They do the job perfectly, but they couldn't actually stop and explain what they're doing. It's hard.
That's right. In a lot of cases, it's not until you actually work through that process yourself and you document every single step that you do that you go, oh, I didn't actually realise there was that much involved, as you said before. A lot of the time, for me, it's about doing just that, and that is the only way that I can document the process, is to sit down and record every single little step. Some of those steps you don't even realize that you're doing, because, as you've said, you just do it automatic. It's such an automatic thing that you don't even realize that there's probably 3 steps to something you thought was just one. And some of those things, by going to a particular menu and clicking on a particular menu item or whatever, for somebody else who doesn't know, they don't even know what menu they're supposed to be going to, let alone picking what item.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, process documentation is very, very important. And we use Carbon for our practice management.
Yeah. How does that go with process?
Yeah, look, Carbon is really good for that type of thing. You can set up a piece of work or a job, and in that you can list down all of the particular tasks that are required to be completed. You can allocate who they are to be completed by and the date due. So you can add all of that sort of thing within Carbon. You can even send clients tasks that they need to do.
Yeah.
as part of the process. Like, say you need to process their paperwork. Well, the first step might be that the client needs to send you their paperwork first, if they're physically sending it to you. Or the client needs to upload all of their statements to HubDoc or whatever, so that you can balance the bank and make sure that the bank agrees. Even though the bank feed's coming through, you still need to check and make sure that the balance agrees with what's on the physical bank statement, things like that. Now, a lot of that sort of stuff we just take for granted and do that automatically. But if a new person comes in, they don't know all of those steps. They don't know that the client has supposed to have sent their statements. And, they may come to the end and go, well, I've done it all. And you go, well, okay, well, where's the statement? Did you compare it? Well, I didn't know I needed it.
That for this specific client, that specific step is required.
Yeah, that's right. They may not have known. And when you get the statement, it doesn't balance. So all you may think you've finished the work, but you haven't sort of started because it never balanced in the beginning.
So you have a Carbon subscription and you use Carbon.
Yeah.
And you use it partly for process workflow. It's called, they call it sort of like workflow management, don't they, or something like that?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Look, Carbon is our weapon of choice at the moment.
Yeah.
I say at the moment because I am looking at ClickUp, which is another.
What's that called?
ClickUp.
ClickUp. Okay.
ClickUp. CLICKUP. It's a different type of program. It's still a project management, task management, all of that type of program. Carbon is a wonderful product, but it does become a little expensive as you add more and more people, especially for us bookkeepers who may only have a few part-time people. ClickUp is much cheaper, but also you can drive much more automation within ClickUp. Now, that's a conversation for a different day where I'll talk about different products and things that I'm looking at and using. But within any type of practice management or job management system that we use, whether it be XPM, which is Xero Practice Manager, or you use ClickUp, or you use Trello, you use Asana, you use Carbon, whatever, within there, bookkeeping practices will have documented their processes. Now, they may not have all of their processes in there, but I can almost guarantee you that nearly every single practice has either got all of their processes implemented or is in the process of trying to document their process. They may never get to the end, but they're trying to document as much as they possibly can.
You never get to the end because processes always change, and by the time you've finished running through it enough times to document it, the process has probably changed. Possibly the method has changed. The technology might have changed.
Yeah.
But, the person doing the process is likely to have, it's for the person doing the process. When they change, they need to have a process to follow. So, look, I hear you. Like, I think it's a bit, I looked at Carbon, and that's why it was too expensive. And that's why I just use a document. But so speaking of people thinking that software is too expensive and not useful enough, I understand you've got a bit of a gripe with that sort of thing, Darren.
Yeah, look, from time to time I hear that people say, is there something cheaper than Xero's $50 a month business plan because it's too expensive for the client? I have fits of rage when I hear this. When I hear this comment, $50 a month is too expensive for somebody that's supposed to be in business. How is $50 a month too expensive? if they cannot afford $50 a month, then they should not be in business. That is my opinion. I know that there will be people who won't agree with me, but if you can't afford $50, you shouldn't be in business. What are you doing? Like, how
Well,
is $50 a month not affordable?
You could be starting up. You could have just had the idea. You could be just really, setting your sights on a big goal, but you're bootstrapping it for the time being, and you feel like you can't spare $50 a month because it adds up. It all adds up, and you need to pay for, rent and Netflix.
But the one thing you should not be skimping on is, the way that you record your financial information. If you're, and this is a big if in a lot of cases, I think, and that's where the problem comes. If you are running a business, you've got to issue invoices. You need to record the payments of those invoices. You should be, must be, I would contend, producing a profit and loss that you can review, looking, recording all your assets and liabilities. If you're not using accounting software, then how are you doing that? Now, even if you use something very, very basic and use one of the cheaper QuickBooks Online plans, which I'm not exactly sure what the cheapest one is, but it might be like $25 or something. And there are Xero Cashbook plans available for the same sort of money, which don't have invoicing from Xero. Even so, the difference between $25 and $50 is literally $25, okay? Now, that's nothing. $50 $50 a month for a Xero subscription is the same amount that somebody would probably spend on coffees a month. They would probably spend that much on a lunch with somebody and a couple of beers down the pub or whatever. How is $50 a month too expensive? I just don't. I don't agree with anyone who says that, and it makes my blood boil.
Well, I'm sorry that you have to go through that. I pay $10 a month for Xero. I'm not quite sure how. I think I don't use Xero for invoicing.
Yeah.
But I basically just I pay $10 a month just to keep my Xero subscription so that I can access Xero for the businesses that are on Xero that I work with.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's good. That doesn't hurt at all. When you're starting up a business, $10 a month is fine. But if it was $50 a month, I wouldn't be able to do it for just what I'm using it for. Because actually I use MYOB to invoice, and weirdly I don't pay anything for that. Because I'm a partner of MYOB, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm not really keeping up my end of the bargain with that because I haven't brought them any clients. Because everyone who I work with wants to work on Xero or QuickBooks. So yeah. Anyway.
So look, I won't go on about it, but that's my opinion on that. That $50 a month conversation, it doesn't sit right with me. I hate hearing that I can't afford $50 and I'll just use a spreadsheet. If you use a spreadsheet, there's no reporting unless you build a report. And how long does it take you to build that report? When you come to the end of the financial year, what's your accountant got to do? Take all your figures out of the spreadsheet, punch them in their own system, which has taken how long and how much money. What's the cost going to be to you at the end of the year? Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough on that one.
Okay. What if they want to write a check for $50 a month?
Oh,
All right,
funny man.
Darren. That's just a callback. It's what us
Yeah, that's right.
stand-up comedians do. Darren, it's been lovely talking to you again. And I'll send you our mission statement for our trip to the the water skiing club.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do that the next time the clouds go away.
No worries.
To everyone who's listening, thank you for listening to the Contra Account bookkeeping podcast. If you want to find out more about Darren's fantastic work as a bookkeeper, head to dardee, DARDEE.com.au, or head to thebkhabit.com.au to find out more about me.
Or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or via our email at podcastcontra@gmail.com.
And please reach out if you have any suggestions for any breaking stories that you want us to get to a wider audience about, any white collar crimes that you've heard about.
Yeah, we'd love to hear them.
Especially if the companies involved have all of their financial reports publicly available. That would be interesting for us. So get in touch with any feedback you have. And of course, subscribe to this podcast on whatever app you're listening to right now. Tell all your friends and all your family members about the Contra Account.
Yep. And in the meantime, keep balancing those books and keep your clients out of the news. See yous.
See ya.